What's up? Welcome back to our second installment of Triple Dub, the podcast that fills the stat sheet with record setting info about the latest NBA news, trends, and predictions. Today, we will be assessing the performance of rookies this season thus far and how it impacts their future. Now to Rohan with our initial takes.
Thanks, Akulash. We're going to start off each episode with an initial take from each one of us. In this episode, we will discuss one team of our choice and our prediction on what their future will be like. I'm going to start off with my prediction on the Warriors. I see the Warriors having a very bright future for many reasons. This season just happened to be an unfortunate one where Steph, Clay, and Draymond were all not able to live up to their full potential. At the same time, many young players such as Eric Pascal and Jordan Poole exceeded all expectations and put up incredible stats for a rookie. Furthermore, the Warriors are projected to have the first overall pick, or at least one of the top 5 picks in this year's lottery. With the Warriors' best players hopefully recovering and returning to their full potential, along with all the flourishing young talent, I see the Warriors having winning seasons for years to come.
All right, thanks, Rohan. So my initial take is about my favorite team, the New York Knicks. So my potentially biased opinion about my favorite team is that the Knicks have a pretty decent future ahead of them. I'm not saying they're gonna like make the NBA Finals anytime soon or something like that, but I think that they will become a playoff contention team in the near future. So this is a team that's still very young, obviously with the rookie shooting guard RJ Barrett, who's improved a lot during the second half of this season after a rocky start. And then you have a great traditional young center in Mitchell Robinson. And then people forget about how young he is because he was drafted in 2014. But Julius Randle is still only 25, so he still has time to improve in this young Knicks team. And then we even have players like Kevin Knox who have time to improve despite a rough rookie year for him. But he's still only 20, so I can see him improving a lot. So the Knicks can compete for a playoff spot, I think, fairly soon within the next few years and even maybe make the playoffs. I don't think we're going to be amazing, but we're going to definitely be a respectable team.
And I'll be talking about the Hawks' future. Although in the last 2 years they have had terrible seasons, they have one of the brightest futures in the league, with many comparing the young team to the young Warriors squads of the early to mid 2010s. Led by superstar second year point guard Trae Young, a fan favorite averaging roughly 30 points a game, the Hawks seem to have put a lot of young talent around him. Currently, the second option is power forward John Collins, a 2010 machine, and there are many other recent draft picks like DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, and Kevin Huerter who have flash potential. On top of that, they have traded for good veteran presence like Jeff Teague, Dwayne Dedman, and Clint Capella. So what's the issue? Out of everyone I mentioned, there is no one with remotely close to all defensive capabilities. The Warriors had Clay, Draymond, Bogut, and other good defenders like Sean Livingston and Iguodala off the bench, but the Hawks have basically nobody. Their only hopes are Hunter and Reddish on the wings, and they look to be average defenders at best. Hopefully, in this and the next draft, they're able to stockpile on defensive wings and bigs to complement Trae Young, and then they will be a true contender in the next years. Next, we have our weekly trivia segment, and I'm the host for this one. I will ask Rohan and Andrew 5 questions related to the NBA draft worth 10 points each, and after 8 more episodes, the winner will make the losers do a forfeit. Just to remind everyone of the scores from last week, I got 50 points while Andrew got none. Now let's go to question 1. In the last 5 years, the Knicks have had 158 more losses than wins, giving them a win percentage of 30.7%. In the last 5 drafts, 2015 to 2019, how many top 5 draft picks have the Knicks gotten? A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, or D, 4? Andrew, with the first response.
I think it's two, just RJ Barrett and Chris Stapps, but there might be others. I don't know.
And Andrew has his first 10 points. Congratulations. The Knicks fan got the next question. All right. Now, next question. Question number 2. What pick was Dwayne Wade in the 2003 draft? A, 1, B, 2, C, 5, or D, 16? Rohan with the first answer.
I'm going to guess D16.
That is incorrect. And Andrew, also responding with the same answer, is also incorrect. In fact, he was picked 5th overall, behind players such as LeBron James, Darko Milicic, and Chris Bosh and Carmelo Anthony. Now to question 3. Andy has a 10-0 lead for this episode. Who is one of the recent surprise stars to be the last pick in the draft? Option A, Jimmy Butler. Option B, Isaiah Thomas. Option C, Goran Dragic. Option D, Kostas Antetokounmpo. Andrew with the first response.
This is a complete guess, but I'm guessing C, Dragic.
That is unfortunately incorrect. Rohan?
Is it B, Isaiah Thomas?
That is correct. And Rohan has tied it up after 3 questions. This is our most intense battle yet. 10-10 after 3 questions, going into question 4. And here it is. In the 2019 draft, how many first-round picks did Duke have? A, 2, B, 5, C, 3, or D, 4? And Andrew with the first response.
Once again, a complete guess, but I'm guessing C, 3.
And this time, your complete guess works for you. They had 3 picks in the 2019 draft in the first round. That is Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish. Now, Andy has a 20-10 lead, but Rohan can tie him up for second place by getting this next question correct. Question 5. In what year did the NBA stop high schoolers from directly declaring for the draft? A, 2003, B, 2006, C, 2009, or D, 2016? And Andrew with the first response.
I don't even remember what the answer was, but I put B.
And for the second straight question in a row, your guess has been the right choice.
I literally put C and B for the last 2 questions. I got it right, but just a tiny bit too late.
Yeah.
I think I actually sort of knew this one.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, in the 2 years prior to that, I think there was something crazy like 10 picks per draft were straight out of high school. And that was causing the NCAA a lot of losses. So yeah. So at the end of this episode, Andy got 30 points, Rohan got only 10, and now we have a ball game. I got 50, Andy has 30, Rohan has 10. 8 more episodes to go, and we'll see a winner.
Thanks for the trivia, Aki. Now we're moving on to the main segment of this episode, where we will assign draft grades to each lottery draft pick and a couple of other significant rookies. For reference, the A range signifies a player who has been a steal, the B range is a selection that's been good, the C range is someone who's been mediocre, and the D range is someone who has been bad. So, Aki, the first pick is yours.
With the first pick, the Pelicans took power forward from Duke, Zion Williamson. I give this an A. This is subject to change once he plays more, but in the 20 games he has played, it's been pretty good. The injury bug is serious, especially with his frame, but he is clearly a future superstar in the league. But we don't want another Larry Johnson scenario with him where he gets injured and he falls out of his athleticism and thus the league in a few years.
Now I'll move on to the second pick. With the second overall pick, the Memphis Grizzlies selected Ja Morant, a point guard from Murray State. My grade for this pick is an A. As we all know, Ja Morant has been a breakout player this year, and he put up incredible stats for a rookie, averaging 17 points per game and 7 assists. And he also showcased very impressive ball skills and vision on the court as well. As much as I would like to give this pick an A+, Ja Morant was projected to go second overall after the GOAT Zion on most mock drafts. So this pick wasn't really too much of a steal, but it was still a great choice because of Ja Morant's talent.
All right, so the third pick overall was RJ Barrett, the shooting guard from Duke, going to the Knicks. And I'm giving this a surprising B-. I know a lot of people think that he is terrible, but you look at like the second half of the season, how he's improved, and in total he has 14 points. He averages 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, which is pretty decent. And the second half is like better than that because the first half was worse. So he started off slow, but he has improved a lot. And I think if he continues to improve, then he could be an amazing player. So that's why he doesn't get a terrible grade from me. He gets a B minus.
All right. With the fourth pick, the Hawks selected small forward from Virginia, DeAndre Hunter. I give this a B minus. This is probably close to what the Hawks expected when they drafted Hunter. He's a good 3-and-D prospect, shooting 36% from three and being a positive defender on one of the worst defensive teams in the league. So although there were better prospects after him, he fits his role, and I hope he'll get better in defense as the years go on.
Now on to the fifth pick. The Cavaliers selected Darius Garland from Vanderbilt. I gave this pick a C minus. C minus may seem harsher than usual for a player as good as Darius Garland, but in my opinion, he's very overrated. Although Garland is regarded as a good shooter, he has way too many turnovers, putting up a turnover to assist ratio of 2.7 to 3.7, and he shoots just 40% from the field. 40% may not seem that bad, but Garland's game is entirely based on shooting, which makes the statistic just that much more concerning. Although Garland is a solid scorer, Cleveland really messed up with this pick, and they probably should have gone with someone better like Rui Hachimura, who is a more accurate shooter from inside, and he also would have met their positional needs since Hachimura is also a forward and the Cavs have too many guards.
I actually disagree with that, Rohan. I think that he is more of a C plus B minus sort of player. I think one of the biggest knocks on the Cavs for taking him is that, oh, they have 2 point guards. But no, Colin Sexton plays more like a shooting guard, and that is shown this season. He's been a much better player, and he's taken most of the touches from Garland, leaving Garland very little room to grow. Although it might have not been the best pick, Garland at least has been average, and he has been good alongside Colin Sexton, especially on the defensive end. He's been all right, and on the offensive end, he clearly has potential and room to grow. As shown by his 87.5% free throw percentage, it can easily extend to the 3-point line in years to come.
Yeah, I also agree with Akilash on this one. I think I had him as a C plus. I think even though like his game, like as Rohan says, is largely based around shooting, he's also been decent in other categories as well. He averages 5 assists a game, which is really good for someone who's like shooting is his main aspect. I think he's been pretty good this season. I don't think he's as bad as a C minus. All right, so moving on to the sixth pick of the NBA draft, where we had the shooting guard out of Texas Tech, Jarrett Culver, going to the Suns and then was traded to the Timberwolves. So this pick gets a C plus for me. You look at his productivity this year, which has been pretty low. He's only averaging 9 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists a game, whereas his competition, I guess, Malik Beasley, since he's started playing, is averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Much better stats than Jarrett Culver has. He still has a high ceiling, and he could potentially develop into an amazing player. So that's why I don't have him lower, like C minus. But I think he does still have to prove himself a lot.
I actually disagree with that. I think there's very little hope for Jarrett Culver. I'd put him in the C minus D plus category. He's been bad. He started off the season like really, really terrible, especially in terms of efficiency. As the season went on, he showed sparks of hopeful talent in the future, but I think the Timberwolves have kind of given up on him almost already, with players like Josh Okogie and Malik Beasley already getting more minutes than him at the shooting guard spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Akila here. I feel like the Timberwolves went on a massive losing streak with Jarrett Culver in the starting lineup, so they also kind of gave up on him, and they're switching to other players like Malik Beasley, and Josh Okogie, and because of that, Culver got pushed to the bench, and he's not gonna develop as much. He's not gonna get as many minutes to play, and I feel like that's gonna be a big factor in hindering his growth as an NBA player.
Okay, moving on to the seventh pick. The Bulls took point guard out of UNC, Kobe White. I give this a B. I'm quite high on Kobe White, and this is solely for the potential he flashed right after the All-Star break, with averages of 26 points per game in his last 9 games. But the rest of his game still needs work. He's a decent floor general, but he turns the ball over a lot, and his efficiency is still not that good. But it does fill a position the Bulls needed, um, as they had Chris Dunn and then Tomas Satoransky there, and he could be the future alongside Zach LaVine in the backcourt.
Okay, moving on to the next pick at 8th overall, Jackson Hayes was traded to the Pelicans, and he is from Texas. I gave this pick a B-. Jackson Hayes is transforming into a very solid player for the Pelicans, but he just isn't getting enough minutes to make a big impact on the team's performance. He has shown some flashes of Anthony Davis level skill, such as when he got 5 blocks in just 1 game, but I feel like he still needs some more time to develop and fully flesh out all of his skill.
All right, so moving on to the 9th pick of the NBA draft, who was the power forward from Gonzaga, Rui Hachimura, who was drafted by the Wizards. Now, I know a lot of people originally, when he was drafted, thought this was a reach, but I'm actually giving this pick an A-. This is a player who's been incredibly productive compared to the people who were drafted before him. Averaging 13 points and 6 rebounds per game for a power forward is very good. And so far, he's produced pretty much better than half of the people drafted before him. So I think that this is definitely a steal. That's why he gets an A- from me.
Okay, so with the 10th pick, the Hawks selected shooting guard small forward from Duke, Cam Reddish. I give this a C. There were many better forward picks here, such as PJ Washington and Brandon Clark, and the Hawks didn't need another forward at the time. His terrible efficiency at Duke only worsened in the NBA, as he shot 38% from the field and 33% from 3. At least in these few games which he's played, he has been a positive defender, but the negative 1.2 win shares on offense is definitely worrying. But he definitely has potential, as his athleticism could carry him to be a good 3-and-D player in the future.
I actually disagree with that a little bit. I had Cam Reddish as a B-. That's because I think he's like, although he had maybe a slow start, you could say he's definitely improved following like the All-Star game, and his productivity has increased a lot since then. So I think that he could end up becoming a great player in the future.
Now moving on to the 11th overall pick, the Phoenix Suns selected Cam Johnson from UNC. I gave this pick a C+. Cam Johnson is a pretty good 3-point shooter and defender, but given that he was one of the oldest players in the draft at the age of 23, it seems as though he's already hit his skill ceiling, which is a little bit problematic. That's not without saying that he's a very solid player with a good future ahead of him, but just the fact that he's already so old and putting up like mediocre stats, not amazing, just shows that it's a little bit of a concern for the Phoenix Suns.
I actually had this pick a little bit worse. I had him as a C- because, as you said already, the problems with his age and also like his productivity this year hasn't really been amazing. He's averaging 8 points a game, which for an 11th pick in the draft really isn't very impressive. And other than that, he doesn't really have any other impressive stats. So I think that like him being pretty old for a first round pick and also not being very productive, this is a C- in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree with Andy here. I think it's a C- pick. I feel there's a lot. It was a positional need that I can give credit for this to the Suns, but there are definitely many better players at this position and who are younger. Also, Brandon Clark is sort of playing behind players such as Mikal Bridges in the rotation, and he's not that good of a defender. So I don't think that the Suns will keep him moving forward. Okay.
All right, so moving on to the 12th pick in the draft, who was the power forward from Kentucky, PJ Washington, who was drafted by the Hornets. And I gave this pick an A-. This is a player who's been very productive this year, averaging 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. And he fits perfectly into this very young and very young Hornets team that has amazing potential all around. I think the Hornets could become a very good team in the future, and I think PJ Washington's going to be a major part of that.
All right. So the second to last pick in the lottery. With the 13th pick, the Heat selected shooting guard from Kentucky, Tyler Hero. I give this an A-. It's a slight steal at this position, and he started off the year really hot from three and has proved to be a very respectable player, even being a plus defender on a really good defensive team in the Heat. He has very good 3-and-D potential and is a great piece on the Heat going forward. I'd consider him a little smaller, a little worse version of Klay Thompson.
Moving on to the last pick in the lottery, at 14th, the Celtics selected Romeo Langford from Indiana. I gave this pick a D+. This year, Romeo Langford has put up pretty subpar stats, and these stats are even subpar for a bench player. He averages 11 minutes, only 2 points, and shoots just 37% from the field. At one point in the season, the Celtics had to send him to the G League because he was playing that badly. Langford's playing has also been obstructed by many injuries, which is just the icing on the cake for Romeo Langford's problematic career.
I disagree. I feel like it's way too early to judge him. There's so many good guards on the Celtics. The Celtics don't really need a lot more young talent than they already have. He's a little bit younger than their core. And with guards such as Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, and Brad Wanamaker in front of him in the rotation, it was the right decision for him to be played very few minutes and be kept in the G League. I feel in a couple years, he will be developed to such an extent that he may be able to take the place of someone like a Brad Wanamaker.
Yeah, but I think that problem with there being a lot of guards who don't allow him to play much is what makes this not a great pick. I think that they could have maybe either drafted a front court player or maybe even traded this pick. I just think that Romeo Langford isn't really isn't really a necessity for the Celtics, so that's why I think they shouldn't have taken him. All right, and I think next we're also going to go into some non-lottery picks. So, Rohan, would you like to give your first one?
Yeah, one pick that I thought was interesting was 17th overall, where the Nets traded this pick to the Pelicans, and they selected Nickeil Alexander-Walker from Virginia Tech. I gave this pick a B-. Nickeil Alexander-Walker put up incredible stats in the Summer League and G League, and he had a lot of hype going into the actual season. However, during the actual season, he underperformed significantly, in large parts due to his limited minutes off the bench, and also fierce competition at the position of the guard. But even then, he shot only 30% from the field and 60% from free throws. But he did shoot 34% from the three-point line, which is insanely impressive for a rookie, given that they have to adjust to the new three-point system coming out of college. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has some good potential and has shown some good flashes of skill, but he still needs to work on his inside shooting and defense.
All right, so the next pick we're going to discuss is the small forward out of Washington, Matisse Thybulle, who was drafted by the Celtics and then traded to the 76ers. So this pick gets a C+ in my opinion. He's had decent productivity for a bench player, I guess, with averaging 5 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. But he is kind of overshadowed by such a strong 76ers team. He's not really getting a lot of minutes, and I feel like a player of his caliber should probably be playing somewhere where he'll actually start or get more minutes off the bench.
With the 21st pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder traded to Memphis, and Memphis selected power forward from Gonzaga, Brandon Clark. I give this pick an A+. It's probably the biggest steal in the draft, and he has jaw-dropping efficiency in his rookie year, shooting 62% from 2 and 40% from 3 as a power forward. and he is a really disruptive defender. The best part is he plays only 22 minutes a game, and I can't wait to see Memphis's new Zach Randolph with a three-point shot develop in the future. The only issue is he's going to stay behind Jaren Jackson Jr., so their Grizzlies are going to have to decide between them or play a big lineup with both Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr.
I'm just gonna
And-
make a. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a small disagreement here. I feel like Eric Pascal was the biggest steal of the draft. Yeah, I wanted to put that out there.
Very interesting. All right. The next player is also one of mine who I want to talk about, and that is the shooting guard from Michigan selected by the Warriors with the 28th pick, Jordan Poole. I give this pick a D. This was a bad pick then, and it's looking worse now. It's the least efficient player in the league, and he's shooting 33% from the field and 27% from three, and he's not a good defender. He wasn't even the primary target defensively when he was playing on those bad Warriors team this season. Hopefully, under the tutelage of the Splash Bros, he can improve to be a respectable shooter, but the future is not too bright for Poole. His highlight of his career is probably the time in college where he made that game-winning three in the NCAA tournament.
I slightly disagree with you here about Jordan Poole. He has been not the greatest of players, but I think that a D is a little bit harsh. I had him more in the kind of C minus range. His productivity, although not great, isn't terrible. Like averaging 9 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists a game for a 28th pick is respectable. So I think this is more of like a C or a C minus rather than a B or a D.
With the 41st overall pick, the Warriors selected Eric Pascal from Villanova. I gave this pick an A+ for many reasons. Eric Pascal was such a steal for the Warriors at 41st overall. He put up incredible college stats, and most big boards had him going in the mid-first round. Pascal has put up some of the best stats of his NBA draft class, other than Zion or Ja, and he averages 14 points per game and shoots 50% from the field with 30 minutes of playing time. But he still needs to improve his three-point shot, but still, he's definitely the biggest steal of this draft class, coming in at 41st overall.
Yeah. Although he doesn't flash the biggest defensive potential, in fact, he's a defensive liability. There's a player on the Warriors who is very similar in stature to him called Draymond Green, who is also a very good defender. I hope that Draymond, over the next few years, will teach Pascal and mentor him so that Pascal becomes an all-around player and truly becomes one of the best players from this draft. But I still see Brandon Clark as the best steal from the draft because he has flashed defensive potential, unlike Eric Pascal.
All right, so moving on to the last rookie we're going to be discussing. There's actually not someone who's selected in the draft. He's actually an undrafted player, Kendrick Nunn, the point guard who currently plays for the Heat. I'm giving this an A minus. He's been incredibly productive this year, scoring 16 points a game, as well as 3 rebounds and 3 assists for a point guard. The only reason I'm not giving him an A or an A plus is because he is from last year's draft and he is slightly older than most of the players we've been discussing. He's currently 24, but he is a very good player, especially for someone who went undrafted. So he gets an A minus for me.
Finally, we have a hot take segment where we each make some potentially controversial predictions about one of the players we've discussed today. Aki, you want to go first?
Yeah. Mine is probably going to be the most controversial out of all of yours. I am going to say that Ja Morant will plateau around next year or the year after, and he will turn into a Mike Conley-esque point guard for the rest of his career. I really like Ja Morant and how he's performed. I think he's going to be the consensus rookie of the year. But I don't see a lot of places for him to improve. His efficiency isn't going to go up. I really don't see his points per game going up alongside players such as Jaren Jackson, Jonas Valanciunas, and Brandon Clark, and Dylan Brooks. So I think he'll tap out at around like a 20 point per game, 6 or 7 assists per game sort of person who is pretty decent on defense. But he's not going to be anything more than that. He may get 1 or 2 All-Star game appearances, but he's not going to be the MVP caliber player people are thinking he's going to turn into.
Surprisingly, I actually sort of agree with you here, Aki. With players such as Stephen Curry, who came to a really bad Warriors team, I think that was one of the main reasons why he was able to thrive. He didn't really have much talent around him, and he was able to turn into an MVP level player. But with Ja Morant, he's already surrounded by so much talent and pretty solid scorers. As you say, I think that is a reason why he won't live up to the potential and the hype that people are saying he will. But I still agree he's going to be a pretty solid player. Okay, now I'll move on to my hot take. My hot take is about Darius Garland. In my opinion, there were many problems afflicting this pick. First of all, the Cavs should not have drafted a guard since they already have way too many guards on their team. I'm pretty sure 7 out of 19 players on their current roster are guards, which is way too much for any NBA team. Colin Sexton and the other guards have been taking away many touches and many minutes away from Garland, which has hindered his growth. Garland would have been so much better on another team that actually needed a guard. Second of all, although Garland is a good shooter, he has had some serious turnover and passing issues, which are 2 things that Cleveland wanted with this pick. Overall, Garland is a solid shooter and solid scorer, but Cleveland really messed up this pick and probably should have gone with someone like Rui Hachimura.
I'm not really disagreeing with that it wasn't the best pick, but I still think that Darius Garland has a lot of untapped potential. Keep in mind that he's coming off of a very serious injury, which he suffered in college in Vanderbilt, which allowed him to only play 5 games at college. So in the NBA, he's still rehabilitating, and he's playing alongside Colin Sexton, who is clearly the better player and the more ball dominant player and the more experienced player. So I think over the years, Darius Garland will probably find a role, and I think he can turn into a decently efficient 15.5 assist sort of player who could be the point guard for the Cavs or another team like the Pistons who need a point guard in the future.
All right, now moving on to the last hot take. Mine is about Jarrett Culver. So there's kind of 2 schools of thought, I guess, about him. The first is that he's still a rookie. He still has a lot of potential and very high ceiling. He could still become a very good player. And then there's the other school of thought, which is that he's already a bench player and there's not really much hope for him in the future. Well, I do think that the first one is possible. I see Jarrett Culver just completely busting, and I can see him getting out of the league within a few years. And this is why. So in his rookie season, he's only shot about 40% in total and 30% from 3-point range. Whereas when you look at his competition, Malik Beasley, he's shot 10 points higher in both of these categories, and he's averaging like almost 3 times as many points as Culver averaged when he was playing. It is going to require some massive improvement for Jarrett Culver to get his starting spot back. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think that he's going to remain a bench player for a few years and then he's going to be gone. All right, so that wraps it up for this episode of Triple Dub. If you liked it, make sure to like. And if you didn't, tell us why in the comments. We will change that in the future. This is the guys from Triple Dub signing off. See ya.